Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Today we have a new set of great stories for you to enjoy. Subscribe to our channel if you're new here, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Sit comfortably. Here we go with our first story. They fired me before I finished my day. I'm a nurse. I work in nursing homes, rehabs, old folks' homes, etc. I do the paperwork that's sent to Medicare. That paperwork has to be submitted in a timely manner or the facility goes from $700 a day to $200 a day. Just tossing numbers out, don't remember the amount. This is important in a second. I worked for a facility that I loved. The people were wonderful, it was like a huge family. The staff ate their meals with patience, the independent people visited often, and our bosses were easy to approach. Then the bosses retired at the same time. Our board then decided that maybe we would make more money if we hired a management company. All of these changes happened within weeks of each other. They hired a traveling nurse to head up the skilled nursing unit for a year. We didn't react well to her. She never smiled. She would just look at you if you asked a question. And she decided that new rules that didn't apply to her were needed. Shortly after her hiring, she began firing everybody. It was like a war zone had erupted on the floor. Nobody smiled, no laughter, no visitors, no family meals, and loads of stress. I was the last one fired. Oh, I had been written up, 0 write-ups when she walked in, for things like cell phone in the floor, my pocket, drink on my desk in my office, water, and filling a certification form late. Doctor signed it the day it was due, but they photocopied it before I had left for the doctor's office. So they had their 3 write-ups. At 1500 on Friday, the administrator calls me into his office. I'm informed that I've been terminated. I'm floored. I work my butt off. I'm actually great at my job. I've been there 7 years. I'm escorted to my office to gather my stuff. They've turned off my computer, asked for my passwords, and escorted me from the building. Here's where the malicious compliance comes in. They called me in to fire me just as I was creating the packet to send to Medicare. I was never able to send it. They never asked if things were situated since it was Friday. I volunteered no information. Remember that timely manner? Well, that Friday was the very last day to submit about 30 different forms. Most were 14-day assessments that literally covered 14 days. Billing friend called and let me know that the default costs over $100,000 by the time they figured everything out. And our next story. Give us more money or we'll evict you. Go ahead. A few years ago, my best friend and I rented a tiny 2-bedroom flat together. This place was kind of terrible. My friend's room had a hole cut in the wall so the last foot of the bed would fit. This became a mantelpiece in the next room. The kitchen was the size of a child's playhouse kitchen, and the upstairs neighbors spent all hours of the day and night screaming at each other or having loud sex. But we were mostly happy because we were over living with 6+ other people. We paid £75 a week each, plus bills for this place, which was pretty standard for a 2-bedroom flat in our area. Then 6 months into our 1-year contract, the landlord sold the terraced house, our flat, and 5 others was a part of, to a middle-aged married couple who were first-time landlords. They were the kind of people who thought they were smarter than everybody else, and I got the impression they thought property management was going to be the easiest thing ever. We had no problem throughout the sale process. We were assured nothing would change. We didn't interact much with the landlord before anyway. Then, 2 weeks after the sale, we got an email from the couple saying we owed them £20 each more a week. Basically, in our contract, it stated that our rent was £75 each a week, about 10 times. But there was one typo where it said our rent was £95 each. So they said they could legally charge us £95. We laughed at this. But when it became clear they were serious, we reached out to the letting agent and got them to put in writing that it was a typo. Our rent was always £75. And they even gave us the original advert for the flat with the correct rent on it. We thought this would be the end of it. We were wrong. The couple insisted on coming to our flat for an in-person meeting. When they got there, they said they asked the old landlord about it and he was shocked that we'd not been paying enough for 6 months now and the rent was always £95. I didn't buy this, because they had nothing in writing, but I made the argument that of course he would say that because he wouldn't want it to seem like he sold it under false pretenses, and if we'd been underpaying by a total of like £160 a month, why had he never spoken to us about it. They said that he was a busy guy with too many properties. Then the husband spent ages condescendingly explaining mortgages to us. Then they declared that if we did not start paying them the higher rent, they would evict us, and we had 24 hours to pay or 30 days to get out, and they left. Honestly, I think they saw two 22-year-old girls and thought they could scare us into paying more money. What they didn't know is that my friend and I are very pleasant until you make us mad, and we become vindictive mother effers. We decided that night that if they wanted to evict us from this crap hole, we were going to make them do it properly. And if they were so pedantic about contracts and rules, we were going to stop letting anything slide. The couple woke up the next morning with an email from our lawyer, my flatmate's brother, a bored lawyer with time on his hands, requesting a formal eviction notice in writing and laying out a record of last night's conversation. Thing was, they didn't actually have legal grounds to evict us, because even if we went to court and a judge favored their interpretation of the contract, we were advised that this was unlikely, we still didn't owe them any more than a month's rent, which would have been their only legal way of evicting us because we were otherwise great tenants. By 9:15 a.m., they were ringing us, but we ignored them and emailed that our lawyer had advised us to only communicate in writing. We sent an email informing them that the fancy new front door they just installed could not be unlocked from the inside without a key, which violated fire safety laws, and unfortunately, if this wasn't rectified ASAP, we would have to report it. We then sent texts that showed them repeatedly entering our flat with less than 24 hours notice, and did they know that this was illegal? Maybe we should talk to the other tenants, because if they've been doing this to everyone, then it could be quite a problem. After about 3 days of this, we received a very nice email saying that they don't agree our rent was supposed to be £75 each a week, but they would graciously allow us to finish out our contract at that rate. By this point, we'd found a flat triple the size for £80 each a week and wanted out of that hamster cage. So we offered to move if they signed mutual surrender forms. They eagerly agreed. The best part was that they stubbornly tried to rent that flat at the higher rate despite us telling them it was a terrible idea, and the flat was empty for over a year. And because they'd agreed to end our contract early, they got stuck paying the council tax, not me. And our next story. Must buy breakfast for the team if you are late. Little background here. I work with a large multi-billion corporation in logistics where we are largely commission-based doing sales. Everyone here is in control over their own clients and book of business. We have managers, but they aren't there to run your book or micromanage. They're there to help motivate you and find solutions to things you may not have run into yet. If I don't come in one day or am late, it doesn't hurt anyone but myself, so I work as much as I possibly can. Being a little late shouldn't be a big deal, but it got to the point a large chunk of the office was routinely showing up 10 to 15 minutes after start. I agree being late shouldn't be a habit, but they are only hurting themselves. If they don't hit numbers, they will just get fired. Living in a central state and having mainly East Coast clients means I'm in the office about an hour before most people anyway. Well, my team manager enacted a rule where if you're more than 10 minutes late, you have to bring breakfast for the team. My team is 16 people, so everyone showed up on time last week. Then Thursday rolls around and I called him to explain how my dog is puking and I'll be 30 minutes to an hour late. He just replies via text, "I better bring breakfast for everyone," even though I'm historically there well before anyone. I was to become his first subject and example. I called to say, "No, I cannot do that. Christmas is coming up, and I have travel plans I need the money for." Well, he pushes back and says to bring it anyway. Now, I'm fairly PO'd as my team originally thought this rule was a joke and in no way enforceable. So an idea forms in my mind. I was not going to take this. I call up Einstein Brothers and order 16 double egg and bacon sandwiches and 16 large orange juices. When I make it in an hour late, the team loves the gesture, and my manager doesn't say a word as he grabs his OJ and sandwich. Now, here's where the fun comes in. Our expense reports were due the next day in order to receive it by the following paycheck. I expense the full $180 and submit it without saying a word to him. The branch manager called me in the next morning, we're on extremely good terms, very chill guy, and asked what the expense is for. When I explained team breakfast and the rule and showed him the text from my manager, he gets red in the face and tells me, "Okay, no problem, it'll get paid and to be on my way." Not 5 minutes later, my manager gets a call, and everyone could immediately see on his face him getting yelled at. He goes into the branch manager's office and proceeds to get a long talking to about what he can and cannot enforce on employees. Looking extremely defeated, he sat down and didn't say a word the rest of the day. He had to send it out in an email to the team recalling the rule about breakfast and apologizing if he put undue pressure on us and that he just wants us to succeed and being late is not the way to do so. The next week, Monday morning, I brought in breakfast for the team again, 12.5 donuts for about $14. And our last story. Had my half-brother removed from the will after he stole money from our father with Alzheimer's. Shortly after my father was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, my formerly estranged half-brother quit his job and moved in to help take care of my dad. Though there really wasn't enough money, it was agreed to pay him around $300 a week to make up for his missing income. During this time, my half-brother abruptly acquired durable power of attorney and usurped medical and financial, my mother and father had separate financial lives, decisions. Several documents relating to my dad's pension, which were now my half-brother's responsibility, were not turned in on time, resulting in my dad missing out on a one-time payout of $8,000 and lowering his pension payout by $300 a month. My half-brother then cleaned out my dad's remaining savings, about $3,000, not discovered until about a month later. 6 days later, our father hung himself in the basement. My dad left all of his insurance money and belongings to my mother. Us children were left with only sentimental items. My half-brother was visibly upset and shaking when the will was read. He acknowledged that my mother was receiving everything and left. About a month later, we discovered the missing money. Though he broke no laws because he had power of attorney, we insisted he pay it back. Even offered to let him make payments over a 2-year period. He refused, and we've been no contact for 2 years now. Little did he know that he was in my mom's, his stepmother's will. He would receive half of what was a currently $250,000 estate. I suggested to my mother that she remove him from the will. She did, and I am now the sole beneficiary. He stole $3,000 now, only to lose out on $125,000 later. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one.